Random House Audio presents The Boy Who Could See Demons by Carolyn Jess-Cooke. Read for you by Carolyn Jess-Cooke and Bruce Mann. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince us all that he does not exist. Charles Baudelaire.
Chapter 1. Ruen. Alex. People look at me funny when I tell them I have a demon. Don't you mean you have demons? They ask, like a drug problem or an urge to stab your dad. I tell them no. My demon is called Ruen. He's about 5'3", and his favourite things are Mozart, table tennis, and rice pudding. I met Ruen and his friends 5 years, 5 months, and 6 days ago. It was the morning that Mum said Dad had gone, and I was at school. A bunch of very strange creatures appeared in the corner of the room, beside the canvas we'd made of the Titanic. Some of them looked like people, though I knew they weren't teachers or anyone's parents, because some of them looked like wolves, but with human arms and legs. One of the females had arms, legs, and ears that were all different, as if they had belonged to different people, and were pieced together like Frankenstein. One of her arms was hairy and muscly, the other was thin like a girl's. They frightened me, and I started to cry, because I was only 5. Miss White came over to my desk and asked what was wrong. I told her about the monsters in the corner. She took off her glasses very slowly and pushed them into her hair, then asked if I was feeling all right. I looked back at the monsters. I couldn't stop looking at the one who had no face, but just a huge red horn, like a rhino's horn, only red, in his forehead. He had a man's body, but it was covered in fur, and his black trousers were held up with braces that were made out of barbed wire and dripping with blood. He was holding a long pole with a round metal ball on top, with spikes sticking out of it like a hedgehog. He put a finger where his lips would be, if he had any, and then a voice appeared in my head. It sounded very soft and yet gruff, just like my dad's. "I'm your friend, Alex." And then all the fear left me, because what I wanted more than anything in the whole world was a friend. I found out later that Ruen has different ways of appearing, and this was the one I call the horn head, which is very scary, especially when you see it for the first time. Luckily, he doesn't appear like that very often. Miss White asked what I was staring at, because I was still looking at the monsters and wondering if they were ghosts, because some of them were like shadows. The thought of it made me start to open my mouth, and I felt a noise start to come out. But before it grew too big, I heard my dad's voice again in my head. "Be calm, Alex. We're not monsters. We're your friends. Don't you want us to be your friends?" I looked at Miss White and said I was fine, and she smiled and said, "Okay," and walked back to her desk, but she kept glancing back at me with her face all worried. About a second later, without crossing the room, the monster who had spoken to me appeared beside me and told me his name was Ruen. He said I'd better sit down, otherwise Miss White would send me to talk to someone called a psychiatrist, and that, Ruen assured me, would not involve anything fun, like acting or telling jokes or drawing pictures of skeletons. Ruen knew my favourite hobbies, so I knew there was something strange going on here. Miss White kept looking at me like she was very worried as she continued her lesson on how to stick a needle through a frozen balloon and why this was an important scientific experiment. I sat down and said nothing about the monsters. Ruen has explained many things to me about who he is and what he does, but never about why I can see him when no one else can. I think we're friends. Only, what Ruen has asked me to do makes me think he's not my friend at all. He wants me to do something very bad. He wants me to kill someone. Chapter 2. Wakeful Dream. Alex. Dear Diary, a 10-year-old boy walks into a fishmonger's and asks for a leg of salmon. The wise fishmonger raises his eyebrows and says, "Salmon don't have any legs." The boy goes home and tells his dad what the fishmonger said, and his dad starts to laugh. "Okay," the boy's dad says, "off to the hardware store, pick me up some tartan paint." So the boy goes off to the hardware store. When he returns, he is feeling very humiliated. Okay, I'm sorry," the dad says, though he's laughing so hard he almost pays himself. "Here's a $5. Go get us all fish fingers and use the change for some chips for you." The boy throws the $5 back in his dad's face. "Here, what's all that about?" the dad yells. "You can't fool me," the boy shouts back. "Fish don't have any fingers." This is a new diary that Mum bought me for my last birthday, when I was 10. I want to start every entry with a new joke so I can keep in character. That means I can remember what it feels like to be the person I'm playing, which is a boy called Horatio. My acting teacher, Jojo, said she's rewritten a famous play called Hamlet as a contemporary retelling of 21st century Belfast with rap, street gangs, and kamikaze nuns. And apparently William Shakespeare is okay with that. Mum says my getting into the theatre company is a really big deal, but not to tell anyone on our street, as I might get beaten up. We're performing the play at the Grand Opera House in Belfast City, which is cool, because it's like a 10-minute walk from my house, so I can make rehearsals every Thursday and Friday after school. Jojo said I can even make up my own jokes. I think this joke is funnier than my last one about the old woman and the orangutan. I told it to Mum, but she didn't laugh. She is sad again. I have started to ask her why she gets sad, and each time the reason is different. Yesterday, it was because the postman was late, and she was waiting for a really important letter from social services. Today, it's because we've run out of eggs. I can't think of a more stupid reason to be sad. I wonder whether she's lying to me, or if she actually thinks that it's fine to burst into tears every 5 seconds. I think I'll ask her more questions about what the sadness is like. Is it because of my dad? I wanted to ask this morning, but then I had what the bald counsellor called a wakeful dream, and remembered my dad, the time he made Mum cry. Usually she was really, really happy when he came to visit, which wasn't very often, and she'd make her lips red, and her hair would look like ice cream piled up on her head, and she'd sometimes wear her dark green dress. But there was this time that he came, and all she did was cry. I remember I was sitting so close to him that I could see the tattoo on his left forearm of a man who Dad said starved himself to death on purpose. He was saying to Mum, "Don't give me that guilt trip," leaning across the kitchen sink to tap his cigarette into the sink. Always 3 taps. Tap, tap, tap. Aren't you always...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?